18-hour workdays, cramped living with multiple families, and don't even mention holidays. This and more is what it was like to live during the late 18th century, but they made sure to leave behind a better future for generations to come. Stick around, because I'll take us back to a time where lives were changing and industrialization was in full swing. At the heart of the Industrial Revolution, we start to see the dramatic shift that forever changed the landscape of cities: urbanization. During this period, rural landscapes transformed into bustling urban centers as people flocked to cities in search of employment in the rapidly growing industries. The allure of factory jobs and economic opportunities drew thousands, even millions, from the countryside. This mass migration from rural to urban areas brought about a seismic shift in the makeup of society. As cities expanded, so did the challenges that came with rapid urbanization. Overcrowding became a common issue as people crammed into tight spaces in the pursuit of work. The very fabric of cities transformed to accommodate the surge in population. Infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and public transportation, evolved to meet the demands of urban life. Urbanization also gave rise to new challenges. Rapid industrialization led to pollution, overcrowding, and the spread of disease in these densely populated areas. However, it's important to note that urbanization wasn't solely negative. It also brought about cultural and social changes. Cities became hubs of innovation, culture, and intellectual exchange. The diversity of the urban population led to the blending of different cultures and traditions. Urbanization was a double-edged sword, providing new opportunities and conveniences while also presenting significant challenges. The cities that emerged during the Industrial Revolution laid the foundation for the modern urban centers we know today. The gap between the rich and poor was quite large near the end of the 18th century. The wealthiest individuals were the industrialists and factory owners. They amassed vast fortunes from the booming industries and became the upper class. They lived in luxurious homes, often in the countryside, and enjoyed a lifestyle of opulence and comfort. The emerging middle class, which included skilled workers, managers, and often small business owners. They enjoyed a relatively comfortable standard of living compared to the working class. They had better housing, education, and access to some modern amenities. The majority of the population belonged to the working class, consisting of laborers, factory workers, and miners. They lived in crowded, unsanitary conditions in urban slums or cramped housing near factories. Wages were low, and they struggled to make ends meet, with little to no access to education or healthcare. At the lowest rung were the impoverished, often living in extreme poverty. This group included those who couldn't find work, the homeless, and those living in dire conditions in workhouses or almshouses. These were institutions that provided housing to those in need, a simple place of refuge with basic support for those who couldn't financially support themselves. Living conditions for the average person during this time were starkly different from what we're accustomed to today. Imagine stepping into a cramped, dimly lit room where several generations of a family often shared the same space. Families frequently lived in single-room tenements or overcrowded slums, where space was a luxury they couldn't afford. It wasn't uncommon for multiple families to inhabit one small space. Privacy was a luxury only a few could afford. When it came to personal hygiene, it was a different world altogether. Running water was a luxury only the wealthy could enjoy. Most people relied on communal pumps or wells, making regular bathing a challenge. As for electricity, it has not been developed yet. Instead, oil lamps, candles, or even open fires were the primary sources of light and heating, which added to the overall discomfort of daily life. Add on top of this the basic food the average worker ate, you can start to picture what it was like. Meals typically consisted of simple, inexpensive foods, like bread, gruel, vegetables, and occasionally some meat. The lack of variety and nutrition in their diet was a far cry from today's culinary choices. Nowadays, we don't even need to step foot outside our doorstep to get food. Working life wasn't much more glamorous. 12 to 18 hours of manual labor, 6 days a week. On top of that, imagine rare or non-existent holidays. The factories and mills of the era were often dimly lit, poorly ventilated, and filled with deafening noise from machinery. Workers endured harsh conditions, inhaling dust and pollutants that posed serious health risks. These machines were powered by steam, water, or even just human or animal power. Safety standards, as we know them today, were virtually unheard of. Accidents were frequent, and the machinery, though revolutionary, often lacked proper safeguards. This made industrial work dangerous, and injuries were common. Death was also a side effect that was prevalent, particularly among children. These kids were put through harsh conditions because of their small size, and with their limited physical strength, they were particularly vulnerable to injury, illness, or death. They often operated heavy machinery that wouldn't exactly stop if they got in the way while it was operating. Children were essential to the workforce, however. They provided their families with the well-needed additional wages to survive, but due to malnutrition, long working hours, respiratory problems because of the factory's poor ventilation systems, they often got the brunt end of the stick. They were not able to get any education, so their future prospects were limited, some spending their whole lives working in factories. Now, let's talk about wages. Factory workers received meager pay, barely enough to make ends meet, spending most of their money on food, rent, and clothing. This might sound like it's still the same today for some, but working half the hours for the same result is substantially different. And while children don't work today, back then they were even worse off, being paid only a mere fraction of an adult worker. However, their wages were a crucial contribution to the family income. At the time, there was no such thing as minimum wage, so employers had almost complete discretion in setting wages, which more often than not resulted in exploitation of the workforce. The lack of workers' rights and protections meant that laborers had little say in their conditions or wages. But strikes and labor movements of the time fought valiantly for the rights and reforms we enjoy today. Later in the Industrial Revolution, people began to stand up for their rights and demand change. They made some of the most significant reforms and labor movements that sought to improve the lives of workers and put an end to child labor. One of the earliest and most influential movements was the Factory Act of 1833 in the United Kingdom. This landmark legislation limited the working hours of children and young people in textile factories and improved their working conditions. It marked the beginning of child labor regulation. Over the years, similar laws were enacted in other countries as well, addressing not only the issue of child labor, but also working hours and conditions for all workers. Labor unions played a crucial role in advocating for workers' rights. These organizations fought for better wages, safer working conditions, and reasonable hours. They organized strikes and protests, demanding change from employers and governments. One of the most famous labor union movements was the trade union movement in the United Kingdom. It paved the way for collective bargaining and workers' rights, leading to improvements in various industries. Throughout this period, social reformers and activists like Robert Owen and Friedrich Engels raised awareness about the harsh realities of industrial labor. Their writings and advocacy contributed to a growing public sentiment for change. These efforts didn't just benefit workers during the Industrial Revolution, but laid the groundwork for modern labor laws and the protection of worker rights that we enjoy today. Life during the Industrial Revolution was undoubtedly tough. From the relentless workdays to the cramped living conditions, it was a stark contrast to our modern comforts and conveniences. Consider for a moment our daily lives. We work 8-hour days, have weekends off, and enjoy a variety of holidays throughout the year. Our ancestors from the 18th century could hardly have dreamed of such working conditions. Our homes are spacious, well lit, and equipped with running water and electricity. We have a diverse and nutritious diet, access to quality health care, and the ability to enjoy leisure activities. The contrast in living standards between then and now is staggering. We've made tremendous strides in workers' rights, safety regulations, and social welfare. The reforms and labor movements that emerged during that era paved the way for the better conditions we enjoy today. The gap between the rich and poor has also narrowed in many societies. While inequality still exists, it's far less extreme than it was during the Industrial Revolution. There are still outliers, as with anything, but the quality of life for the lower classes has drastically improved. Urbanization, which brought challenges but also cultural and social vibrancy, has given us modern cities that are centers of innovation and diversity. As we reflect on this journey through time, we're reminded of the incredible progress humanity has made. The lessons of the Industrial Revolution underscore the importance of social progress, workers' rights, and the pursuit of a better future for all. While we face our own unique challenges today, it's essential to acknowledge how far we've come and how the struggles of the past have shaped the world we live in now. Thank you for watching. Before you leave, check out Crusade, a mobile game I developed about financial education that is currently in beta. Link in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more captivating journeys through history. Until next time, may we continue to evolve. just as society has, toward a brighter and more equitable future.